Welcome to the Marketing, Sales, and Collection Process lecture. Now we're going to move our attention to risks and controls as they relate to revenue recognition in the sales process. The revenue recognition model. To deal with the complexities of revenue recognition, we have in US GAAP, the Accounting Standards Codification 606, and IFRS 15, International Financial Reporting Standards. And these both standards include the same 5 steps for revenue recognition. All public and private companies that are complying with GAAP are required to adopt ASC 606. Let's review the 5 steps of the revenue recognition model. Step 1, we are to identify the contract with a customer. Step 2, we are to identify the performance obligations in that contract. Step 3, we are to determine the transaction price. Step 4 is we have to allocate the transaction price to the performance obligations in the transaction. And lastly, in step 5, we are to recognize revenue when or as the entity satisfies the performance obligations. So these are the 5 steps in the revenue recognition process according to both US GAAP ASC 606 and IFRS 15. Now we have 2 ways in which we can recognize revenue: over time or at a point in time. So if we are recognizing revenue over time, we are measuring the progress to determine the degree to which the performance obligation is satisfied. If we are recognizing revenue at a point in time, then revenue is not recognized until the performance obligation is completely satisfied. We also have to control for mistakes and fraud. So the most common financial statement fraud cases involve revenues and receivables, and they are typically perpetrated by management. Management is often incentivized under pressure, which is one of the 3 aspects of the fraud triangle, to overstate revenue to meet profit targets. And misstatements can also happen due to error. So one of the most effective controls to prevent these types of fraud or errors is an automated sales process. Now let's review the revenue recognition control activities. So here we see that the CFO would probably implement a sales model in the ERP system, Enterprise Resource Planning System, to automate the sales prices. Also, the CFO may proactively conduct one of my favorites, data analysis and monitoring. We might also have the HR director or director of legal and compliance implement some anti-fraud policies and training. Revenue misstatements. Even with an automated sales process, revenue recognition is a high risk for financial misstatements, whether that is caused by errors or as a result of management trying to perpetrate financial statement fraud. So let's review some of the revenue misstatements around control activities. So here we see that the controller would probably enforce the company's sales cutoff policy. We also see that the automated system might control the sequence of shipping documents and investigate any anomalies. The system might also match the sales invoice with the accounting period in which the goods were transferred to the customer and the obligations were fulfilled. Additionally, we might have that the controller would reconcile the totals of the invoices to the gross sales in the general ledger to verify completeness and accuracy, which are management assertions that auditors typically test. We also might have the automated system control generate invoices and recognize revenue when that customer electronically signs the acceptance of a shipment as well. Additionally, the controller might separate the billing function from the shipping and accounts receivable functions, and the automated system control might use numerically sequenced shipping documents and match those to the customer billing, or generate a report listing all of the shipping documents that do not have sales invoice matches. The automated systems control might also match the sales invoice quantities to the shipping information and the price to the sales contract or even the main price list. And lastly, the controller might review returns, credits, and adjustments to determine the timing of the revenue recognition. And this concludes our lecture on revenue recognition. Thank you for watching.